Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today I am really excited to share with you guys my birth story. So if you are new to my channel, I recently had baby number 5. So before her, I had 4 other kiddos, 2 boys, 2 girls. So let's go ahead and get started. So my baby was born on January 7th, 2023. So I was 38 weeks and 4 days pregnant. And all of my babies have come between 37 and 38 weeks of pregnancy. So I was kind of hoping for the same with her. I actually was really hopeful that she would come before the new year, and that didn't happen. And so with that, I will go ahead and get to like a little of like what happened a couple days and the day before leading up to birth. So the Thursday before she was born, I had my 38-week appointment. And when I went to that appointment, I showed up and I was a little bit disheartened because I was still pregnant. And I know that's crazy, especially because pregnancy is, technically 40 weeks. And there's many women who go to 41, 42 weeks pregnant, and that's totally normal. But I was a little bit disheartened because I was hoping that she would come before the new year, and I just kind of had a feeling that maybe she would. And so when I showed up to that appointment and I was still pregnant, I was a little bit mopey about it. And so I kind of told my midwife that, and then I also complained that I was going to be pregnant forever, even though I was just only 38 weeks pregnant. I, at that point, was like being kind of dramatic and thinking that this baby was going to go overdue or something of the sort. I was, when you are on, I don't like, honestly, I don't care if it's baby number 1 or baby number 5, but when you're in those last few weeks of pregnancy, every day feels like it's lasting forever. And you're ready to be done being pregnant. You're ready to be done, with everything that comes with being that pregnant, and you're just ready to have your baby in your arms and to meet your baby. And so I was being a bit dramatic to say the least. But she reassured me that, I wasn't going to be pregnant forever. Pregnancy has to end. It comes to an end for everyone. And so we went through that appointment and, all was good. I felt better leaving. And the one thing, I didn't have any checks at that appointment. I don't like to have a lot of checks. I think only one of my pregnancies I've ever had checks, and that's because that was my only pregnancy with an OB. 4 out of my 5 pregnancies have all been with midwives. This was my first time having a home birth midwife and also attempting a home birth. All of my other midwives were in the hospital. So I didn't have any checks or anything. So I don't know where I was, even though I was feeling that emotional. Like, it wasn't as if I got checked and I had no progression, and so that made me kind of dramatic. I had no idea where I was. And so that was a Thursday. And then the next day on Friday, I was just kind of like really irritable. Pregnancy, you're just full of all kinds of hormones and emotions. And I was irritable, like really irritable. And I told my husband that I felt like I just needed to be able to not parent for a couple of days and like be able to rest and relax and not have to really worry about like what my kids are doing, what they were getting into, and just kind of be just me and him for a couple days. So we reached out to his parents to see if they were available to pick up the kids for the weekend. And I actually joked with my husband. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if once the kids are gone, I go into labor? And so we kind of joked about that. Didn't really expect much or anything, but I had been pretty stressed out and pretty irritable for like the last week and a half. So I think that like mentally, I kind of needed like a little bit of a break. If you haven't seen some of my other videos, I only have like, I think 2 other videos where I talk about my pregnancy, but I had HG, which is hyperemesis gravidarum. And I had that throughout the majority of my pregnancy. I got it under control late in my 2nd trimester, and I didn't have any issues with it in my 3rd trimester, but I was medicated for my entire pregnancy, which is another reason I was ready for it to just be over. So when you're that sick for so long, and then, the end of pregnancy aches and pains and things like that, I felt like I just needed to decompress before the baby came and like just have some time to myself with my husband and not really have like it sounds bad, but just not really have to add the responsibility to my kids for a couple of days. And so his parents were very kind and they picked them up Friday night. And my husband and I had him go pick us up. I was really craving like a bacon cheeseburger. So I had him go pick up some bacon cheeseburgers from a restaurant that's about 20-30 minutes away. And so he came home, we had dinner, we watched something in bed, and then we went to bed for the night. So, okay, let me back up a little bit. The majority of in my last 3 pregnancies, so pregnancy 2, 3, and 4, I had prodromal labor, where I would go into what felt like full-blown labor multiple times before I actually finally went into labor. So I was kind of waiting for that to happen this time around so that I would know, like, okay, I've already had my little prodromal labor, so now like maybe labor's coming. But this pregnancy seemed a lot more similar to my first, where with my first I think I had some Braxton Hicks. I wasn't really sure back then, but I had some Braxton Hicks, and then I like stayed up all night nesting, and then I woke up in labor the next morning with my first. And so this time around, I had tons and tons of Braxton Hicks. The more pregnancy you have, the more uncomfortable Braxton Hicks contractions are. So I had tons of Braxton Hicks, but I never went into prodromal labor, or I never had consistent contractions that made me think that I was in labor. I would have some that would kick up, and I'd have like a few an hour, but then they would just die back down. So I never went into full-blown prodromal labor this time. So that night, Friday night, we went to bed, and we were sleeping peacefully, and I woke up at about 4:30. And when I woke up to use the bathroom, and when I first woke up, I realized I was having contractions, like I had a contraction. Went to the bathroom, came back to bed, had another contraction. But like I said, I'd been having some pretty intense Braxton Hicks, and they felt the same way. So I told myself, like, just go back to sleep. If you're able to go back to sleep, it's nothing. If it is something, it'll wake you up. So I went back to sleep, and then I was woken up around 5:30 with another contraction. And so I laid there for about 10 minutes, and I had a few contractions. And so I had made a note in my phone that I shared with my husband. That was his like honey to do labor list. So like everything that he needed to get done when I told him like, hey, I'm in labor. And in my mind, so I do have pretty fast labors. Outside of my first kiddo, all of my labors have been 4 hours or less. My first was 27 hours. So I didn't want to give him an overwhelming list that I knew that he couldn't get done. And a lot of it had to do with cleaning, because, you know, we were attempting to have a home birth. So we were going to have midwives come to our home. So I just wanted things to be neat and tidy and clean, like our bathroom, our living room, our kitchen. I wanted things to be organized and clean. And so we made sure all of that was done on Friday before my kids left. They all made sure their chores were done, made sure their bathroom was done. And so when my husband, on his list, he had a lot less to do, just in case I went into labor. But every night we tried to make sure that the house was picked up. We do this anyways, but we really were intentional about it, making sure that the house was picked up every night, just in case I woke up in labor in the middle of the night or in the morning, and so that we didn't have a whole lot to do. So at 5:30, I woke up. I was having contractions. I waited about 10 minutes, and I had a few. I don't remember exactly how many. I didn't write it down or anything, but I had a few. And after that moment, I knew that I was likely. I had a strong feeling that I was actually in labor. So I tapped my husband and I said, baby, it's go time. You need to get your list done. And so he like didn't even really respond to me. He got up, got changed, and just went to work on that list. It was really sweet, really cute. And so while he was doing what he was doing, he had to, the first thing that he had to get done was to air up the birth pool. So he did that. And while he was working on stuff in the bedroom, getting things in their places where they needed to be for the midwives, he set up one of the laundry baskets that we have as a trash can with this ginormous trash bag that we had. And so while he was doing that, even though I have like this routine that I go through when I go into labor, it usually includes a shower. But the night before, like when my in-laws came to pick my kids, I was actually already in the bath. So that was one of the ways that I wanted to like relax on Friday night, was I took an Epsom salt bath. And so I had already taken a bath and like cleaned up the night before. So I didn't get in the shower when I went into labor, but I did fix my hair, fix my makeup, and I got changed into something more. I got changed out of my pajamas. And so once I was done in the restroom getting myself ready, I came out into the room and I helped him out. We put the bed together because you have to have like a bed sheet with a waterproof liner and then another bed sheet. And then we took off all the stuff that we didn't want to get messy, put that on there, put some Chuck's pads on there for just in case. And then we both headed out into he got the diffuser going, he got the music going, had set up a labor and delivery playlist that I wanted him to play. And I sent that to him on Spotify so that he was able to play it from his phone. And so he connected that to our Google Home and played it throughout the whole house. So after that, we both went out into the living room and I started cleaning. Like I was sweeping the kitchen, wiping down the counters and doing all of that. And actually while I was getting ready, I texted my midwife and I checked the time that I texted her. I texted her at 5:50 to let her know that I woke up at 5:30 and I was having contractions, and they were about 2 to 3 minutes apart. And so it's really funny about me is I'm always afraid of like not actually being into labor and then making a fuss. And I was even more worried about it this time because I had midwives coming to me. I wasn't going to the hospital. So it's not that big of a deal. It's annoying when you go to the hospital and you get sent home, but it's even more frustrating whenever you are having a home birth and you have midwives coming to you and they live like 45 minutes from you and you aren't actually in labor. So I didn't want that to happen. So while I was expecting prodromal labor to happen at some point, I'm really glad it didn't, because I would have hated to have my midwives come out and not actually be in labor and then have to leave at some point. So I messaged her and I let her know that my contractions were 2 to 3 minutes apart, when in reality I was timing them and they were like 1.5 to 2 minutes apart. But part of me was in denial that they were that close together. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I was afraid to tell her that they were that close together or if I was just denying the fact that I was that far into labor already. Like I woke up that far into labor. And so I was like, there's no way I woke up at, like, as if I was thinking in my head, there's no way I woke up this far into labor. So I'm like calculating these wrong, even though I was using an app. And I mean, I've calculated contractions before, but like I said, I was in some kind of denial. And so I let her know, and we were like, getting stuff ready, cleaning, and like realizing, oh, hey, like, I haven't heard back from the midwife. So my husband told me, he's like, you better go ahead and call her. So I didn't call her until 6:30. So until about 6:30, so about a full hour after I woke up. And so she called me and told me, so we talked a couple times. The first time we talked, I told her like, the same thing that I told her in the text. And she said, okay, I'm getting ready, I'm on my way. And then she called me whenever she left her house to let me know that she left. So she called me to let me know that the other midwife was on her way because she lived a little bit closer to me. And then she asked me what I was doing. And I told her, well, I'm just like walking around helping Andrew get things ready and clean up. And at that point, so this is an hour after waking up from labor, a little over an hour after waking up into labor. I'm helping my husband clean. I'm having contractions and I'm having to like, they hurt, they were uncomfortable, but I was still moving around, cleaning stuff. Every now and then I would have one that like I would just stop and like let the contraction happen and then get back to what I was doing. And so during the second phone call, I was now having to sit down or like definitely take my breath and stop. So the first time I was still kind of like, every couple were, making me stop or whatever. And then at the second phone call, which was only 10 minutes later, I was having to actually stop whatever I was doing. And so when she called me, I had actually sat down and on the phone with her, I was in the middle of one and then I had one or two more, I can't remember. And so she asked me what I was doing and I told her I'm just up cleaning and helping Andrew get his list done. And she like laughed a little bit. She's like, can you do me a favor? And I said, sure. She's like, can you just lay in bed or go into your bed and get on all fours? I was like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I can do that. I was like, I'll try all fours. And so she said, okay. And so we hung up and I did what she asked. I came to my bed and I got on all fours and I just hung out there, which was really nice because by the time I got off the phone with her, my contractions were like, maybe there was a minute in between. They were kind of starting to pile up on top of each other, where I was getting just a short break and they were lasting pretty long. So I came to the bed, and once I got on all fours and I laid on the bed, I was actually on all fours, kind of on my arms, like on my knees, but my hands were like this rather than being pushed out like that. I was like this, and I was leaning over, and that kind of slowed my contractions down. Actually, I was having them maybe every 2 to 3 minutes apart, but when they came on, they were lasting a really long time. And so she called me again at like, what time was it? At around 7:10. So this was another 30 minutes maybe. And she told me she was 15 minutes out from my house. So I don't know exactly what time they got here, because by that point I was just like in my zone on all fours in my bed and just going through each one of my contractions. And I want to say about 10 minutes after she called me, the first midwife got here, and she like started setting all of their stuff up. So we had things at home already that came in our birth kit that we had to have for the midwives that we set out for them, but they also come with all of their other stuff and like their actual medical equipment and things like that she was getting set up. And so she got here, and then I think like 5 minutes later, my other midwife got here, the one that I'd been talking to. She got here and she came right over to me and checked on me, asked me how I was doing. And again, I didn't like, when I say checked on me, she just came to see how I was and to like listen to me have contractions and things like that. But just like throughout my pregnancy, or like throughout those last few appointments of not getting checked, I never got checked during labor either. So I never, when she got here, it wasn't as if I found out like what I was dilated or effaced or anything like that. They completely let me just labor. So I was on all fours. We had our music on and our diffuser was going. I think we had lavender and rosemary essential oils that we had going. And the only other thing that I used for to help me get through labor, I had a lot of things prepared. I had like some heating pads prepared. I had a massager. Like I had all these little things prepared just in case. But the music, the essential oils, being on all fours, and then I made these affirmation cards, which are all like Christian-based affirmation cards, and I flipped through them, and then just to see if like I wanted to read through all of them or if one would stick with me. And as I read through them, one did stick with me, and it's the one that I kept. I kept it on this one card, and I would just look at it at the end of each contraction while I was on all fours. And this one said, my Father in heaven has prepared me for this day and given me all that I need in him. And so with my music going and then, you know, reading this card, I just felt like I was really, really clinging to Jesus in this labor. It was probably the labor that I felt God's presence the absolute most, but it's also the one that I sought him out the most for as well. So like I had this playlist, like I said, for the last couple babies, but I only listened to it while I was at home. So while I was at home in labor, I would listen to the playlist. Or like if I had affirmation cards, I would do them at home. But once I got to the hospital, I never pulled anything out and used anything. Okay. Had to take a quick break and I forgot where I was. But anyways, so moving on. My midwife got here, she checked on me to see how I was doing, and then she told me she really wanted me to eat and drink because I actually don't like eating and drinking during labor. All of my midwives have always offered me to eat, but since we're at home, I think that they have a little bit more persuasion on you. So I was able to drink. I had liquid IV, which is what something that she preferred, coconut water, liquid IV, or something with electrolytes. So I did have coconut water on hand as well, but it didn't sound very appetizing. So I had my husband make me a liquid IV, and then I really didn't want to eat. Eating during labor is not something that I ever really want to do. I've tried it in a few labors, and I'll take like a bite of a banana, and I'm just like, no, I don't want to eat. So she really wanted me to have something for energy. So she offered me up a spoonful of honey, and that was perfectly fine for me. So I had a spoonful of honey so that I could get some energy, and then I also had I was drinking liquid IV throughout. And after I had that, when she did get here, she said she wanted me to have a few contractions on the bed before I could get in the pool. And when she called me around a little after 7, when she said that she was 15 minutes out, that's when she told me to have my husband fill up the pool. So that had already been filling up before she got here. And it was just about ready. And so it was just about ready when she got here, but she did want me to have a few contractions with her being here just to see, I guess, their strength and intensity and how often I was having them. And so I had those few contractions. I, was drinking my liquid IV. I had the spoon of honey. The pool was finally done being filled up. And this was probably around 8 o'clock. I don't know the time at all, but probably close to 8 o'clock. And she told me that I could get in the pool if I needed to, but if I needed to use the restroom, to go ahead and do that first. So I did need to use the restroom. In all of this, my water hadn't broke, and when I got up to use the restroom at 5:30, that's when I noticed like some pieces of my mucus plug. I had no labor signs leading up to waking up into labor, so my mucus plug was still very much intact. Waters hadn't broken, nothing like that. I hadn't really had any of those like visual signs of labor. So when I woke up with those contractions after I used the bathroom, I noticed I had lost some pieces of my mucus plug. When I went to the bathroom at one point before my midwives got here, I think after cleaning, I noticed like what I thought was bloody show. And so I didn't think anything of it, so I didn't say anything. It seemed a little bit jelly, and so now in hindsight, I think at some point my waters did like start to leak. So when I went to the bathroom again, I had more of that stuff in my underwear, and like I said, at the time I was thinking it was just bloody show, but in hindsight, thinking back on how jelly-ish it was, I think it was actually amniotic fluid, because when the baby was born, we were all kind of like, when did my water actually break? None of us know. So I think maybe if it wasn't bloody show, maybe my water sprung a leak at that point, one of those times when I went to the bathroom. So at around 8 o'clock, I got up to go to the bathroom and to change. My husband knew exactly what I wanted to wear for my water birth, and so he brought that to me in the restroom so he could get changed. And when I got out of the bed to walk to the restroom, it's really not that far. I would show you guys. It's like not far at all. And in between that walk right back to the bathroom, I had like 2 or 3 contractions. And then my pool was even closer to the restroom than my bed, and from the restroom to the pool, I also had 2 or 3 contractions. So once I got off of the bed and off of hands and knees, they were back to back to back. And I had no idea, because on hands and knees, I was just like in a zone. And I guess in that position, they were just they weren't coming on as strong or as quickly, I guess. But once I stood up, they were definitely on top of each other and way more painful. And so I got into the birth pool, and as soon as I like got in there, like got both legs in there, and I got down on my knees and I leaned over the pool like this, my body just sank. And I remember just saying to them like, oh my gosh, this feels so good. And it really did. But once I had a few contractions, I noticed that my legs and my feet were in a position to where they weren't like, I didn't feel grounded. Like they were just kind of where I was in the pool. My feet didn't reach the other end, and so they didn't have anything to, not that they were really holding on, but they didn't have anything to touch to make me feel secure. So I had a couple contractions in that position, and then my midwife wanted to check the baby, so she checked the baby, and when she did, my baby went wild. I don't know what, like, she was already a super active baby while I was pregnant, And so it didn't surprise me, but I felt a little bit vindicated when my midwife felt it, because like she went down with the, you know, the probe, to like the Doppler probe, and when she felt, she was like, wow, oh my goodness. But I've never felt this in labor before. She went crazy in there, and got her heartbeat. It was good. And so after my midwife moved and my husband got back in front of me, I told him, like, I need to move somewhere else because my feet, they're not touching it. I don't feel grounded. And so I switched. I like rotated until both of my feet could feel like some part of the pool. And so I had a couple I had like another maybe 2 contractions in that position where I moved to. And my midwife came over and told me, like, she's like, do you want to catch your baby? And I said yes. And she's like, okay. And she told me, like, she gave me the instructions of, like, this is what I want you to do. As soon as you feel like you need to push, you know, bear down, push, and like put your hand down, touch here, do this, do that. And so I was like, okay. And then I had another contraction, and she like was there, and I was like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. And even, it's so crazy to me because I've had, you know, 4 babies before this one, but there's always a point, at least for me, and I hear this from other moms too, there's always a point in labor, and this is where you know you're about to meet your baby, where I give up. And so I got to this point, and I remember thinking in my head, like, if I was at the hospital, I could have asked for an epidural right now. And again, in hindsight, thinking back on it, I was probably already 10 centimeters at this point, and they would not have given me an epidural. So, but yeah, like I was saying, I always get to a point in labor, and it's in transition, like either the start of transition or the end of transition, where I completely give up on myself, and I feel like I just can't do it. And then the next thing I know, I'm holding my baby. And that was the same again. So I told my midwife, like, I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can catch her. I don't think I can do this. And so she's like, we're here to support you. You can do it. You will do it. And I was like, okay. And so I started to have a contraction. So she walked away. And then I had another one right on top of it. And this time, like, my body just started pushing. So like I was still like this, but I leaned up on the pole a little bit, and my body just like bared down. And so I did it, like, I just helped it along. So I just like did like a push, and then the contraction stopped. So I stopped. And then with the next one, I let out, like, in my mind, I felt like I was screaming out of control. But talking back through my labor with my midwives and with my husband, they're like, you did not scream. You were so quiet. And so, and my midwife's like, she's like, but I recognize, like, you feel like you were screaming, and you probably were in your mind. She said that I did let out like a single loud sound, and that's when they came into the room and they knew this baby was coming. And so I let out this sound, whatever it was. It was just like this loud animalistic groan, I guess my husband would say. So I let out the sound, and then I pushed my baby out with 2 pushes. I pushed down once, my body pushed, and so I pushed along with it. And then I heard my midwife say, like, her head is right here, but like, control it, give the head time to stretch you out so you don't tear. And so even though my body was pushing, it took like everything in my mind to take control over my body to like stop it from just completely pushing her out with that one push. So like I managed to stop myself, and then I like regathered myself and got my breath, and then I pushed again, and she came out, and I was able to catch her. My husband's hand was down there because he was feeling for her head because I was crowning. But then I pushed her out, and so he was able to guide her to my hands, and I reached down, I pulled her up, and I laid back, and she was born at 8:19 in the morning on January 7th. So like I said, it was pretty quick. After that, you know, you just go through all of the afterbirth stuff. One of the really nice things about being at home was when it was all done and you're just like hanging out in bed and nursing your baby, and you know, it's just peaceful. You're in your own bed There's not a whole lot going around you other than my midwives cleaning everything up. By the time they were done cleaning and they left, you could not tell that we had just had a baby at home. And so my husband went to after they left, my husband went to a local shop that we have here in our tiny town and got us some lunch. We had some paninis and some scones and just loved up on our baby. So that is my birth story. Like I said, it went fairly quickly. It was under 4 hours from the time that I recognized that I was actually in labor into her coming. And pushing was super quickly. Like I said, I got in the pool close to maybe right around 8 o'clock, a little bit after 8 o'clock. And she was born at 8:19. So, yeah, that is the birth story of our 5th baby, which is a sweet little baby girl. And I hope that you guys enjoyed this story. It was very peaceful, very calming. I felt the presence of God so much. Like, he had his hand over my entire labor and birth, and I could just feel him so close to me and like just in my heart. And the music was very helpful. That one affirmation was super helpful. So if you're watching this video and you're about to have your baby, or you're pregnant and you're going to be having a baby soon after you watch this video, or whatever it may be, I pray that you feel God's presence and that He has His hand over you, your labor, and your baby, and may you birth your baby in the same peace and comfort that I did. So that's all that I have for you guys today. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, you want me to clarify something, or you have any questions about any part of my birth story, leave those down in the comments. I would be more than happy to answer those questions for you. If you aren't subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit subscribe. And don't forget to like this video. I will see you guys in the next one.